Hybrid power units have been part of the F1 regulations for 11 years, though it's fair to say they had an unceremonious and bumpy start. In 2009, the cars were allowed a fairly small energy regeneration and deployment system alongside the combustion engine, and this was expanded substantially in 2014 to turn the cars into fully hybrid machines with a significant amount of their power coming from recaptured energy. Every car that's used energy recovery systems since 2009 has used an electric battery to store the energy otherwise lost in braking. While this may seem obvious, using a battery for this wasn't mandatory at all, and teams were free to develop whatever they considered to be the best solution to storing energy. Williams very nearly changed the whole game when they pointed their research and development in a completely different direction from the start. This video explains how Williams put all their efforts into designing a revolutionary flywheel hybrid, and how, despite never actually using it in F1, it can still be considered a success story and a piece of engineering genius. But before we get into the meat of this video, let me quickly thank Skillshare for sponsoring it. I use Skillshare quite regularly as I grow and develop my skills in video production. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes in both creative fields and business type skills. You can really achieve a lot just by upgrading your skill set, even if you don't always have the money or equipment of a big budget organisation. For example, maybe you want to get into video making but are daunted by all the expensive gear. No worries, you can learn to shoot professional looking videos on your iPhone, and the skills you learn here can carry forward as you develop. Skillshare is pretty affordable at less than $10 a month compared to the huge cost of workshops and classes, but you can try it out for free for 2 months by following the link in the description, so you don't have to take my word for it. Get stuck in and try it for yourself. So check out the link in the video description and learn something new today. Now let's get back to Williams' flywheel. Let's wind up to discovering Williams' novel flywheel solution by talking about energy recovery in general. In fact, let's start by talking about energy. The way you power anything is by transferring energy from one state to another, whichever form is most useful for the situation. For example, a gun converts chemical energy stored in the gunpowder by starting a reaction that creates heat, sound and kinetic energy that transfers to the bullet, propelling it down the barrel of the gun at high speed. The energy was stored chemically and was transformed into a useful kinetic or moving energy. We can store and release energy in lots of ways. For example, we could spend a lot of mechanical energy lifting a large weight up to a great height. A lot of the energy spent in lifting the weight is stored in the suspension of the mass at height, a potential energy. To spend the energy, you simply release the weight and it accelerates towards the ground, converting that potential energy into kinetic energy until it transfers that kinetic energy to the ground to create a large crater. The hybrid power units as we know them today in F1 cars take energy under braking and converts it into electrical energy, which transfers it to a battery where the energy is stored chemically. And the reverse is true when the energy is deployed from the battery back into powering the wheels. And by recovering energy under braking, what I mean is this. When the wheels are turning, they're carrying a lot of rotational energy. To slow the car down, we need to take that rotational energy away from the wheels, reducing their speed. Normal brakes do that by simply clamping down on the wheels and using friction to sap the kinetic energy away by converting it into heat, which simply escapes away from the car and is lost. But an energy recovery system instead turns the rotational energy into a different energy and stores it away, reducing the energy wasted through heat and hugely improving efficiency. So, energy recovery was allowed in F1 in 2009, but only a small amount was allowed to be stored and deployed, which allowed teams to play with and develop the technology without the pressure of it being a huge amount of the overall power, as it is today. Cars could only deploy an extra 60 kilowatts or 80 brake horsepower of power at the push of a button, but only for 6 seconds a lap. That's a total of 400 kilojoules extra energy, which is over 30 AA batteries. Nowadays, energy storage is 10 times higher, and cars can deploy twice as much extra power for over 5 times longer per lap. Under the original KERS rules back in 2009, only 4 teams even tried running KERS at all. No one ran it in 2010, but it came back with a vengeance in 2011. In that time, Williams were furiously working on a flywheel solution to their energy recovery and deployment. But what does that entail? Well, it would mean that Williams would have no battery at all in their energy recovery system, as they would instead store their energy kinetically. A flywheel is essentially just a heavy wheel that spins super smoothly and super quickly on an axle. You can transfer the spinning rotational energy from the car's wheels onto the flywheel. In doing so, you slow the car down and speed the flywheel up. In effect, the flywheel steals spinning energy from the driving wheels, slowing the car down, which contributes to the braking of the car. The flywheel then just sits there spinning happily until it's ready to be used, at which point the reverse happens. The rear wheels steal energy from the flywheel. The car gains power and the flywheel slows down. There are actually many ways to transfer energy from a flywheel to the drive shaft and ultimately the rear wheels, and the most common mechanical solution is to use a continuously variable transmission, or CVT. Unlike a standard transmission, which has a series of discrete gear ratios, a CVT in effect allows you to smoothly adjust the gear ratios infinitesimally like magic. It's not in the scope of this video to explain some of the ways this is done, but an advantage of this system is that everything is linked mechanically. Mechanical energy in the rotation of the wheels converts to mechanical energy in the CVT, which converts mechanically to the flywheel. It's all just one big kinetic system, so you reduce a lot of the losses that can happen converting it to electrical and then to chemical energy, as with a battery. The disadvantage here is that you are extremely limited in where you could put this system, as it has to be right next to the gearbox. However, Williams didn't do this either. In order to save weight and space and allow them to position the flywheel further up the car, they developed an electrically driven flywheel. The way this worked was, instead of a CVT between the drive shaft and the flywheel, Williams put a motor generator unit. These are basically like mgu-ks you'd find in the other battery-powered cars that convert mechanical energy from the wheels into electrical energy. But instead of taking that electrical energy and using it to charge a battery, they used it to spin up a flywheel in a very clever way. What they did was lace the flywheel's carbon mass with magnetic particulate, turning the wheel into a permanent magnet. The electrical energy from the MGU would then feed into a stator in the axle of the flywheel, which, as you'll know if you've seen my mgu-k video, will spin up the flywheel by electromagnetics. An electric current in the system induces rotation in the flywheel. Once the flywheel is charged up with rotational energy, you can just do the reverse to put power back into the car. The spinning magnetic flywheel can induce current in the electrics, sending electrical energy back to the MGU, which drives the rear wheels. It was compact, lightweight, relatively easy to build, and could spin at over 50,000 RPM in good conditions. This type of flywheel also has a high power density, essentially a very good power to weight ratio, and could run and run and run without losing efficiency, unlike batteries, which do tend to lose efficiency over their lifetime. Ultimately though, Williams never used this flywheel design in their F1 cars. This was mostly due to packaging problems, as in 2010 refueling was banned, which increased the size of the fuel tank significantly, which expanded into exactly the area where the flywheel would sit. But the tech was a real success. Porsche used the system in their 911 GT3R, and Audi took a 1-2 at Le Mans with the Williams flywheel hybrid design. Though Williams deferred to the standard battery system for F1, they continued to develop their flywheel technology, selling their systems to road cars, sports cars, and a fleet of London buses. Eventually they packaged up Williams hybrid power and sold the venture to a huge engineering firm, GKN. So their flywheel didn't quite meet the needs of F1, for now at least, but we've definitely not seen the last of its application. Will we see flywheel systems compete with batteries in race and road car systems going forward? Well, it's important to understand a crucial limitation. Flywheels can only store so much energy, and they can't hold it forever. Unlike a battery, which can store energy without significant loss for a very long time, a flywheel will eventually slow down and come to a stop. It can only store energy while it's spinning at high speed, and a flywheel is limited in how much energy it can store at all. It can only spin safely and practically so fast after all. So while it's great at recovering and deploying energy, it's not so great at long-term, high-density energy storage. So it still has great application for racing and for public transport, where the frequent braking and accelerating is the perfect scenario for flywheels. Perhaps one day we'll see solutions that involve a mixture of batteries and flywheels in some vehicles. A hybrid if you will. Maybe.